Greetings, traveller! My name is Ellis Miller. I'm a master of dungeons, maker of homebrew, and the manufacturer of the Malefactor.
Good. First try.
You don't know me, but I don't know you either. But if you're watching this, then lend me your eye lobes and your ear balls, and let me tell you about my first 5th edition class released on the DM's Guild that you can pick up right now, the Malefactor. And yes, it is pronounced Malefactor, not Malefactor. Malefactor means sinner and evil, meanwhile Malefactor is still up for speculation. A masculinity determining system? A really terrible RuPaul Drag Race contestant. This ain't no GIF or GIF or Artificer versus Artificer, it's the Malefactor. Anyway, for an intro or at least like a hello from me, I didn't want to just say, hi, I'm here, give me your soul and let me show you what I could create.
And this is where I'd put a trophy. If I had one!
So, this is also a showcase of a new class that you can grab right now. It's a hello and something I hope to showcase what I can do, so I hope you'll stick around. With the release of the new Stranger Things and the movie about D&D and the VTT spot coming out with one D&D coming around the corner, people are going to come down to the oubliette in which we all dwell and suddenly think, hang on, I saw the cool owlbears and the dragons in that movie, but there are 3 core books, a DM screen, adventure books, and more supplement books?
More lambus bread.
People will start to think, is this going to be a huge investment of time and money and effort, God forbid, to play this game? And the answer is no. You don't have to spend money, you don't have to, spend that much time, and, well, you might have to put effort in. My philosophy is the shorter the better, for text, at least. So the idealistic version of my content would be videos tutorialising concepts of RPGs and D&D and the other things in a more accessible and punchy way, with a timestamps at the bottom so people can actually find the information they want to know. And then I'm thinking maybe separate videos that are longer, more freeform, I don't have to make a script every time, and they allow me to discuss something in more detail to discover nuances and maybe some anecdotes thrown in there. And I've got plenty of anecdotes, so maybe campaign diaries could get involved. I could even bust out this thing and get some cool backgrounds behind me or something. And of course, even the most experienced of us are going to see changes with the system because of the new 1D&D thing coming in. So, let's learn together. And hopefully I can guide you through somewhat. So, the Malefactor. What is the Malefactor? Well, the Malefactor is a duty-bound warrior whose duty is to commit some dastardly crime in order to bring about change. They are the necessary evils of the world. When a circle of pacifist monks of life reluctantly agrees that in order to spare the lives of the many, the evil cult must be removed. Or when the don of a shady criminal syndicate sees the reign of the new king as a threat to his perfect web of thugs. Or when a vengeful blacksmith seeks to find and arrest the evil necromancer who escaped the guards' clutches again. Sounds like you need a Malefactor. Note, I said bring about change, not bring about good. You can be a Malefactor who ends the rule of an evil tyrant or a benevolent king. This frees you to choose what crime you must commit and for what purpose. Now, gameplay-wise, their sole purpose in combat is being a character who is useful without spells, but still exists as a unique support class who can focus down the enemy and allow you and the other melee guys to destroy them. Depending on the subclass, the Malefactor can range from being a terrifyingly intimidating tank who can deploy cover to defend their allies, a toxin-wielding DPS, or a spellcaster's bane. Malefactors get access to light and medium armour, as well as proficiency with all weapons, and access to heavy armour and shield with a certain subclass. They are martial combatants, but not every one of them is a tank. Any lack of armour is made up with how supportive they are, with the debuffs they can apply, but they can still pack as much punch as a fighter or a half-caster can in other ways. Calling upon ancient power, the Malefactor at first level can steal healing from those around them. Whether your enemy or your ally cast a healing spell, uses lay on hands, or some other magical ability, Hungering Ruination lets you force a saving throw to steal half of those delicious hit points all for yourself. But don't worry, you can ask your companion to willingly fail the saving throw, and if they do, then they heal the intended amount, and you get some as well. I'll just take some of that. Also at first level, your Malefactor gains their signature power that all these Dark Warriors get. Word of Damnation. As a bonus action, you can utter a command or a single word, and creatures who fail the saving throw have their speed reduced to 0. Of all the things in this class, balancing this ability prompted the most revisions. The first draft of this ability was basically an insanely powerful hold person, and that's been ironed out for now. Anyone who heard this ability thought it was super cool, and in testing made the Malefactor feel like a terrifying authority on the battlefield. But is a level 1 movement blocking ability too powerful for a bonus action? And honestly, alongside your other proficiencies and the other powers you get, it's powerful enough to feel core to you in combat, but not so powerful that you destroy that said combat. Also, I will remind you, this ability simply reduces the speed to 0, not paralyze you. A creature that can use ranged weapons, like a skeleton or a goblin, can still damage even if they are standing completely still. The benefit lies in you being able to focus that enemy and swarm them. Your barbarian buddy who watches the Devil Lord fly away again, so they have to use their action to dash again, will praise you as their new god. Since this can change the flow of movement on the enemy side, you get all uses back on a long rest. It's tied to your charisma modifier, since you are projecting a dominating presence on the battlefield, so powerful that your words can literally stop foes in their tracks, so the higher your charisma, the more uses you have. This means that malefactors will probably be quite persuasive, or deceptive, or intimidating. Someone you want on your side. You get a choice of fighting style that even includes a unique one for myself called Simple Use Master, which allows you to increase the damage die of a simple weapon by 1 step. That means you can fulfill the fantasy of being a deadly warrior with a dagger or a hand axe, rather than a short sword or a battle axe. I love the image of charging in with 2 hand axes held high like a berserking Viking, or facing down a bunch of villains with not but your daggers like V in V for Vendetta. Or a mace being viable. Well, now you can do that if you want. Also, since you are playing a character who must commit a crime to bring about change, you're not above using dirty tactics. I always thought that the Battlemaster had it right when they had a guy with just a sword be able to diversify what they do on their turn. And there are not many reaction-based abilities in the game, so now you have some with this class, so you can feel like you're actually using all of your turn, all your available options, not just your action and bonus action. And you can use these as many times as your proficiency bonus before needing 8 naps in order to get them back. With these machinations, you can act more wounded than you actually are to bait your enemies into a ready attack in their unsuspecting hides. Or you can strike and move your enemies to a new position so your allies can start the slapping. Perhaps you want to straight up use your enemy as a human shield. Or maybe you want to capitalise on how shocked your enemies are at striking down one of their friends by charging them. Or maybe you get caught in the crossfire of too many fireballs, so you send a bolt back at them with weaponised pettiness. At 3rd level, all that preparatory fighting has led to you proving yourself worthy to follow the dark dogma of your profane duty. Your character who has been preparing to commit for this duty finally takes their first step and gets their subclass's batch of cool toys. Will you be the toxin-using, backstabbing anarchist whose duty is to bring down a person of nobility or power? Will you seek out the evil lich or the corrupt court wizard and repel each of their arcane attempts to stop you with a plethora of anti-magus magic countering abilities? Or will you strike fear into the hearts of your enemies with the iron giant that is the executioner, who is charged with the crime of exterminating life? Your subclass grants you abilities at 3rd, 6th, 10th, 14th and 18th level, and all of your subclasses give your Word of Damnation a unique buff, and another machination to define your fighting prowess. The Anarchist at first glance is a roguish assassin, but there are no abilities that really give you better stealth, so you're not moving in on the rogue's turf here. You gain toxins that have a DC based on your intelligence or your dexterity, so the subclass can be optimised to be dexy, and as a result stealthy, but feel free to play them how you want. Your toxins use toxin charges, and you gain more charges as you level up. You can spend these charges to craft a number of toxins, which range from knocking people out, take extra poison damage, fall flat on their face, or freak out in social settings like you poured pants in their ants. Your Anarchist Word of Damnation grants all creatures advantage on hitting that creature. So we're getting closer to other conditions, but remember, your enemies can still act on their turns. As you level, you can double weapon damage, gain resistances, decrease the cost of toxins, and eventually craft toxins that can leave even terribly powerful foes foaming at the gills. If the Malefactor as a base class can attack and impose debuffs, the Anarchist grants a whole slew of ways to mess with the enemy. Just like an anti-air missile is made to destroy aircraft, the anti-magus is built to fight against spellcasters. You gain 4 cantrips when you pick the subclass, but you can get as many as 8 at high levels. Cantrips are free to use, so anti-mages can outlast their arcane-wielding opponents. I love cantrips, if I'm honest. Honestly, when I play a caster, I just think, how can I get as many cantrips as I possibly can? Because it just feels like I'm being passively and casually magical. You can choose cantrips from the cleric and or sorcerer spell list, so you have quite a wide selection from both the arcane and divine. This reflects how the malefactors are based in both gaining an intrinsic power and a defilement on the holy. When deciding on which spell list to choose from, I honestly couldn't pick because they both made complete sense. Also, when all you have is the SRD to go on, combined, they have a similar freedom of choice that you would do if you had a spellcaster. And before you say, no spellcaster has the ability to dip into other spell lists, I will remind you that every bard can do that. Certain warlocks can pick cantrips from other classes, and magic initiators let you pick any magic class you want. And by the looks of it, 1D&D is leaning towards just having 3 spell lists, with Arcane covering 5 of the classes. So, Have both. Your word of damnation can mess with the concentration of spellcasters. Perhaps you utter a sinister magic-tangling curse, or...
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Your cantrips get more powerful as you level up, you gain access to abjuring spells that can counter, detect and dispel, and you can get your own brand of evasion at higher levels, because you're so used to being blasted by so many lightning bolts that you can just take no damage if you dodge. And finally, the Executioner is a towering warrior who can bond with their shield to make sure they are never unprotected in their bloody charge. Their word of damnation can frighten targets, so whilst the Anarchist can grant advantage, the Executioner can impose disadvantage. My favourite part about this, if you're standing right in someone's face, they make the damnation save with disadvantage. You gain abilities of being able to place down a force wall to use as cover, that becomes portable eventually, and then straight up deadly as you summon it back into your hands and it slams past whatever person was stood there. The lady on the front cover, wherever it is, she's an Executioner, in case you're looking for some inspiration. The Executioner is based on the idea of being a judge, jury, and Order 66, someone who is sent to stop their enemies, so they don't come back. Ever. If you've ever watched Flashpoint or Dredd, then this subclass is supposed to be your Judge Dredd or Thomas Wayne sort of character. Of course, at level 4, you then get your ability score improvements, or feat. Then as you level up, you gain a number of abilities, such as Inevitable Reproach, which lets you deal extra necrotic damage against creatures targeted by your damnation save, regardless of whether they succeed or fail. You get Empowered by Purpose, which lets you use your charisma in place of another stat when making a saving throw. And Decadent Incentives, which gives you a gift for continuing with your dark path, letting you either have heightened mobility, the ability to teleport around the battlefield, maybe you want to be better with intimidation, or being able to cast Branding Smite to deal even more damage to your enemies. And also your word of damnation improves to target multiple creatures, being unable to be silenced eventually, and Hark, the Harbinger beckons, which lets you target a bunch of creatures within 60 feet of you. Overall, this makes the Malefactor as easy as a martial class, but as useful as a spellcaster. I think that classes such as Ranger, Artificer and Paladin have it right, they're doing great, but some people see spells of any kind and just run away, so this class is as useful as those half-casters and casters, while being a self-contained class with options to deal damage, be a supportive tank, and cast if you want to. Those who have seen this class with me in playtesting thought that I had a lot of role-playing opportunities. You can choose who or what you're carrying your duty out for, whether that's a god, an otherworldly being, an organisation, or you're just self-driven. And I will say, even though it says what traits and dogma each subclass follows, feel free to ignore all that and just use the framework of the class itself to just be a unique warrior class with any RP you want. The dogma and what crimes they must commit is like the purest version of playing the class, since it's based on lore that I can't really put in the DM's guild and present there. So it's been condensed and generalised, so it's more like as intended versus however you want to play. I always imagine your power stemming from ancient rituals that have been formed by the very first malefactors, and it still lives on to this day. The malefactors follow dogma, detailed in old misplaced books and scrolls, and the ritual involves slightly different ways of signing your soul into the duty of a malefactor. But I also like the idea of players being able to choose what other sources your malefactor powers come from. Perhaps it can be a patron of sorts, perhaps you are the child of a prophecy, or maybe you are the martyr who does the evil that no other devoted wants to do. Perhaps you choose anti-magus not because you want to hunt down a mage, but because you're the bodyguard of a mage who needs someone capable of fighting big ol' weird monsters and spellbinding adversaries. Perhaps as an anarchist, you're an ex-criminal who's trying to do good by a new party to repent for past deeds using what you're good at. I like this knife. Or maybe you see a force field and think Reinhardt and just be an honourable warrior rather than a scarily stoic executioner with tons of potential. I would also like to thank the great artists that contributed to this PDF and making it look snazzy. Time to butcher some names! Samuel P. Pedrini, or Pi Pedrini, for the wonderful cover art in a painted style, showing a terrifying executioner winding up for the final blow against the leader of the Thorn. Michaela Kami, or Kami, for making the beautiful magic item art within. And yeah, you can blame her for one of the magic items being sentient, saying that a certain scroll will be sat there spitting insults at you for failing saves and missing attacks, because damn your math rocks, right? Ilham Zaka for making a super cool depiction of the malefactor, holding his hammer high and saying, "You," to the next victim. And Teresa Kalachi for basically doing everything else, from the background to the borders. My watermark, This is Chester. Links to all these guys are in the credits of the PDF itself and in the description below, YouTube things. Check them out, and I sincerely hope you guys get more attention. You all really deserve it. The design for this class was all carried out by me, but funnily enough, this is my first class, or my first bit of homebrew. I want to release fun classes, races, settings, adventures, encounters, magic items, and more things to add to your game to make it more fun, but my first class was the Incarnate, a guy so powerful he can just punch people through walls. And, well, through that, you can be an actual monster on the battlefield. You could be like an anger-filled fiend straight from Doom, a supportive angel, which has some of my favourite buff and healing mechanics I've ever made, and 3 more subclasses. Maybe I could also release the Spiritualist, who is a spiritual spellcaster, who can fit your role of Shaman, or its unique gimmick is that it has different spellcasting systems based on your subclass. It's got its own spells, and the base class can take a spell and add a secondary effect onto that spell. Yeah, you can basically make your own spells. I've also made the Adept, whose mechanics have led to me making a system for being a weapons expert, regardless of your class. And finally, I have the Concord, which is all about teamwork and granting bonuses depending on what classes the Concord plays with. It literally grows with the party, and depending on the party makeup, no 2 Concords will ever be the same. These classes and all their work and design are ready to be formatted and illustrated, but I thought the Malefactor could excite people about playing something unique and fun, but without doing something as crazy as adding 3 different subclasses with 3 different spellcasting tables all in one class. So if any of that sounds exciting, as I think it is, then I would recommend you subscribe and follow my socials, calling everything Dungeon Bits, and keep me in mind for when I next release something. YouTube things. Oh yeah, and remember to check out the DMs Guild for the Malefactor. And now go. Surprise your table with your word of damnation. Go siphon all the healing you can, and dominate your enemy. All will fear the herald of the damned.